thing I have been, even the enemy, because they are the enemy, what they've said, even that enemy too, and they're really the enemy. They're the enemy of the people, the press.
Not to be dramatic, but U.S. media is under attack, and while you could argue that changes needed to be made to the media landscape, you could also argue that these weren't the changes that most of us had in mind. I know there's too much going on right now for any of us to keep up with, let alone to wrap our heads around, but as we all clamor to stay informed, while also attempting to maintain our sanity, while we're deliberately being emotionally manipulated, just staying informed has become a challenge, and yes, that's also deliberate. We live in a time when the media is controlled by a handful of billionaires, all or most of whom have bent the knee to Trump. Those who haven't have already experienced some version of his wrath. For instance, according to The Guardian, Trump's new federal communications chair, Carr, is reported to have ordered an investigation into the sponsorship practices of taxpayer-supported NPR and PBS member stations, a media network long hated by conservatives who accuse it of a liberal slant. Over at CNN, anchors and journalists received instruction from Chief Executive Mark Thompson to not express outrage while covering Trump. CNN also moved popular host and Trump's bane, Jim Acosta, to a time slot that was known as the Siberia of TV news, a move that ultimately prompted Acosta to leave the network altogether.
It is never a good time to bow down to a tyrant. I've always believed it's the job of the press to hold power to account. I've always tried to do that here at CNN, and I plan on doing all of that in the future. One final message. Don't give in to the lies. Don't give in to the fear. Hold on to the truth and to hope.
At CBS, its parent company Paramount is currently in talks to settle a $10 billion claim from the Trump team that it edited a 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris unfairly in a way that made Trump look bad. According to Trump lawyer Edward Paltzik, real accountability for CBS and Paramount will ensure that the president is compensated for the harm done to him and will deter the fake news from further distorting the facts to advance a partisan agenda. At ABC, the network paid Trump $15 million to settle a defamation suit after George Stephanopoulos said that Trump had been found civilly liable of rape, and even Meta, run by Trump lackey Mark Zuckerberg, had to pay $25 million to Trump for booting Trump from its platforms in 2021. In other words, being on Trump's bad side, as most media is bad for business. Hence, networks are already wary of presenting information that could be perceived as a slight against him, and we all know that Trump has a fragile and easily bruised ego. The tiptoeing that would be necessary to keep him appeased and abated could, in some cases, be argued to be presenting news in a way that is inaccurate or misleading. As Michael LaRosa, the spokesperson for former First Lady Jill Biden, put it, he's dictating the news on his terms. He's become America's assignment editor. But when Trump first started disparaging the media back in 2015, when he started tweeting about fake news on a near daily basis, when people said back then that this was a problem that would lead to much bigger problems, we were all told that it wasn't that serious, that he was right to be critical of the news in this specific way, that we were overreacting when we all said that these are the words of a wannabe dictator. It wasn't even that far-fetched back then. Just look at dictators or authoritarian leaders around the world throughout history. They often, if not always, disparage and discredit the media before either dismantling it completely or seizing control over it. Controlling and limiting access to reliable and verifiable information is an incredibly effective way to control a population. And it's not just his actions in the media that do this. He's working with his team right now to close down the Department of Education, something that his supporters are excited about for some reason. You really have to be quite uneducated to not value education. They say it's because they support school choice or because public schools indoctrinate children. Those are bad arguments, but they're too uneducated to think critically about the actual problems with public education or potential solutions to those problems. The Trump administration is also altering information available on .gov websites. For example, they have removed any mention of transgender people from various government websites as if pretending something doesn't exist means it actually doesn't exist. It's stupid. It's been 3 months since Election Day and just 2 weeks since Trump has been inaugurated, and yet time has seemed to slow as things simultaneously move more rapidly than ever. Every day it seems there's some fresh horror designed to keep us awake at night, to keep us glued to our phones, to keep us scared, and to render us both hopeless and helpless. And then every other day, it all seems to be reversed, as if it was all just deployed to distract and dishearten us all along. And then we're expected to believe that the same guy who got us into whatever specific mess we were dealing with is the same hero who got us out of it. Thanks, Donald Trump, for saving us all from Donald Trump. It's comforting to see that public outcry and opposition seem to be somewhat effective as far as prompting reversals of unpopular doctrines and acts, but it's an exhausting and unnecessary way for all of us to live. And we can't respond to everything with the same fervor and intensity when everything bad is happening all at once. The things that don't trigger a collective response from the populace will undoubtedly remain in place, and the things that are reversed will be undoubtedly repackaged, rebranded, and rammed through again at a later date. In the meantime, we can do little but remain vigilant and stay on top of the news, but I would also say that maintaining your own sense of mental well-being and, dare I say, happiness is an act of rebellion on its own. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks.